Hello, welcome to David Eames On Your Mind, a conversation between friends about mental health issues. Hello, and welcome to David Eames On Your Mind. As always, I'm joined by the lovely Mikey Markham, and increasingly rarely these days, the wonderful Owen Oxley.
Really?
I'm not going to ask you where the fuck he's been, because we know that he's been up to no good.
Of course.
So, today we're going to be talking about superstition, which, might give you some use, touch wood. Are you superstitious, Owen?
I think so, yeah. I try not to be, and I try to be more conscious about the fact that it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it's a really weird thing that you catch yourself doing, or you catch yourself being superstitious, as opposed to actually thinking it's going to make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
We had scaffolding up, and the whole time, to get to my car, I had to walk under a ladder. And strangely, when I was taking the boys for a walk, I'd walk up the ramp. We've got a ramp down to our extension. I'd let the boys walk under the ladder, and I would go round it. And it's only because life's been a bit herky-jerky these last few months. So I don't want to give myself any other chance to be fucked over. I mean, something could have fallen on me because it didn't hit the ladder. But I think it's all, I don't know, there's coping mechanisms built into everything, and this is another one of those kind of things.
You don't know why you do it. That's what you're saying.
Well, it's just the unknown element of it, because someone says, oh, don't do this, don't do that. And you think, well, I don't want to give it the chance to even creep in.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm consciously aware of that, because I have walked under ladders, and I have walked on 3 manhole covers all together, and I have walked on the cracks on the pavement. But I think it's when you've got, when your brain's in a certain place to be vulnerable enough to be concerned about these things is when it's the worst time for it to happen. Does that make sense?
Well, perhaps you're more aware of possible threats.
Maybe.
Mikey, are you superstitious?
No, but I have been conditioned with a bit of that mentality. It resonates with me. I'll do it anyway. I'll cross on the stairs. I'll go under ladders. But when I do that, my mind goes, oh, you shouldn't go. Because I've got a bit of a stubborn mind as well. And I don't want to not do it because I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's stupid. But it's still a tiny little bit of ingrained conditioning in there that just makes me question myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say I don't believe in it. I'm not superstitious, but it is a weird feeling that it gives me when I do a act that I've heard of, like crossing on the stairs.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder whether or not it's beneficial or whether it's a negative thing. The whole touch wood thing. Oh, you say something positive that's been going on, then I need to touch wood. Well, why?
And people touch their head.
Yeah. or they throw a black cat covered in salt over the shoulder or something.
Mate, and this is it. And it's what you've been conditioned to
Saluting magpies.
See, that I cannot stop. and the thing is, my youngest now, when we're driving, she just scream from the back, Maggie!
Yeah.
And literally to the point where I almost had 2 magpies tattooed on my hands. When I went to Vegas, I actually got lovebirds on my calf. But I was going to have small magpies because when I used to drive to Long Eaton, I could guarantee I would see 1. But again, it was when my mind was at quite a low point because I was in a job that I wasn't particularly enjoying, and I'd always see 1. And I was like, yeah, fuck you, sorrow. And it was kind of more frustrating that I could never get the pair to not make myself even feel better. And I don't think it's like you have a car accident and go, well, that's that fucking magpie's fault. Do you know what I mean? But it was... Maggie's, to me, it's more something that I've got now as a little thing with Libby, because...
Or you've conditioned your poor daughter.
Of course, which is everything that is every part of her. So her sense of humour, how she feels about a lot of things is the conditioning that we've put on them. And I suppose that's true through life of everything, of any superstition. When, like, if you didn't know about it, it wouldn't fucking matter. But because it's been passed down the line for such a long time, it's like I was talking the other day, it's slightly off topic, but someone was talking about phrases like the pot calling the kettle black. And I said, that's still a phrase that's used, but we don't really have wrought iron kettles anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like the majority of kids growing up will go, well, my mum had a Morphy Richards and it was pink. Like, what does that mean? So it's just things that are always passed down and always forever taken forward. But no, I think some things are insane, and like Stacey's boss won't have green in the house.
Okay.
She's probably one of the most unlucky women, without getting into a whole life story. That the experiences she's had through her life have been ones that would probably have floored and buried a number of people. So when she turns around and goes, "I'm not having green in it," you start thinking to yourself, maybe there's something in that, because since she's not had green, she's not had any of these tragedies. So it's worrying. Because it can control you.
Confirmation bias can kick in then.
Yeah.
Because it's like you notice the things that correlate and you disregard the stuff that doesn't.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I've not had any bad luck since I got rid of the green. Well, you're maybe not describing things as bad luck.
Exactly, yeah.
Or you didn't notice that things were going well when you did have the green. So,
it's the perception.
Magpies, what's the mechanism where seeing a single magpie is going to bring bad things into your life?
I don't know, but it's like when you hear the
mechanism of the brain.
No. What's the physics?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I think a reasonable way to think is trying to have an explanation for the results that we're proposing,
as in a scientific explanation.
Yeah. So for instance, with regard to astrology, don't get me started. That people talk, the influence of the planet Jupiter. Given that gravity follows the inverse square law, that it falls away with distance, that a book held at arm's length has as much influence on you as the planet Jupiter, and the houses of your birth sign are all, because of the precession of the equinoxes, they're not lined up. That the supposed house of the sun that you were born in was not the right one, because it's actually the sun's in a different position in the zodiac.
Yeah. But again,
so what's the mechanism? What's the mechanism for seeing a magpie to bring sorrow into your life?
I think the majority of things are coping mechanisms, because it comes from a time before the distraction of Sky TV, internet.
But what I'm proposing to you here is you feel comforted because of your conditioning.
Exactly.
So escape your conditioning.
Which is what I think you do organically as you get older and have your own experiences.
Well, you haven't.
Yeah, with the majority of stuff I have. And I think because of the magpie side of things, it's something that I share with someone that means so much to me, that I kind of like the fact that she still wants to talk to me. She still wants to have a minute with me. But it's like with my sister, she was fucking insane as a child. And you could get her to do anything, because I can remember walking home from school with her and she'd kick a stone and she'd go and get it and pick it up and put it back with the other stone. I don't want it to be away from its friends. And I was like...
What's your...
That's
she
fucking
didn't
mental.
Want the stone to be away
didn't
from
want
his
us
friends.
What's your theory or thought on conditioning, though, and comfort in conditioning? Because that's the beautiful scene in The Invention of Lying, isn't there? Where he tells his mum when she's dying, she's terrified, and then says, "Don't worry, you're going to go to this best place ever imaginable, heaven." And then that comforts her. I don't believe in heaven, but if my grandma was dying, I would probably comfort her in that moment. And if people have mechanisms and coping mechanisms, don't you think that's okay?
I've got an answer if I can, really quick, because I've thought about this before. Because the whole, how I feel about religion, all the rest of it, and obviously each their own. But when it comes down to you telling that person a lie, or you're telling that person a perceived lie, or however you want to look at it, and essentially you're making them feel better. And it's how they interpret that, because his mum at that time is really ill and is going to probably die and needs to have comfort. Some people have also heard that story, and they are to such an insane different view of that, that they're willing to kill themselves and other people because of that being their end goal. It's the same story. You're going to go to heaven and this and this. So they're willing to live their life and harm and damage other people because of the comfort knowing that even though they're doing all this horrendous stuff, they're going to end up at the same place. So on one side, fucking fine. Yeah, nice. But that same story has actually corrupted and made other people act in such a way, in my opinion only, that I think is fucking horrendous.
See, I think the problem with a lot of the superstitions is that it's conditioned.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely agree with you. It's that anything that's sort of a belief away from the truth, or the best approximation of the truth that we have, which is what science is. Science isn't the truth. It's the best approximation of the truth. So Stephen Jay Gould, the scientist, talked about the laws of science. There are no laws. He said there are certain things which are so well established where it would be perverse to withhold provisional assent. That's a really good way of saying it. That it's not, you say it's true, you say I'm not going to withhold my provisional agreement with it. And so everything is a hypothesis. There's nothing that is a fixed law because knowledge advances. Science advances by disproving things.
Yes.
Whereas these things are superstitions, the touching wood, for instance. It's that idea there that if you say something positive about your life, the gods may come in and punish you for that.
Yeah.
You know, it's the whole the Greek god thing of hubris, the overweening pride that comes before a fall. And then Nemesis is going to come and punish you for showing that pride because the gods get jealous of your pride.
Yeah.
So most of these superstitions, they're based on anxiety and about quelling the anxiety. If we can remove the superstitions, maybe we can remove a degree of anxiety from our lives as well.
Yeah. What I've noticed recently, and it's been a really nice thing. Obviously, Moo's 15 now, and she's always been pretty confident, and she's always done what she's wanted to do. But she's almost inherited her friendship group's small anxieties. So we were out the other day and she saw a character dressed up, you know, like the Mickey Mouse character, and she went, "Oh, I hate seeing them. They make me feel a certain way." To which me and her mum turned around and was like, what are you talking about? You've never felt like that. Here's a lifetime's worth of pictures of you wanting to be with these people. And it turns out that one of her friends in her friend group was saying that. So she was part of the crew. And I think it is sometimes a tribe mentality because all I've ever tried to pass on to her is you don't necessarily need to give a fuck about what other people think. Something you've always passed on to me and I'm not saying that you go up to someone, punch you in the face, and you're an ignorant piece of shit. But
who you are is not dependent on what other people say.
Precisely, and the fact that you stood in a shoe shop worrying about what someone might think about something you really like is fucking horrible. And that energy you're wasting is the currency that I've mentioned in the past. And it was really nice because she had work experience. So she had work experience for a whole week at a kid's nursery that Stace used to work at. So Stace kind of opened the door and she came down on the first day, no anxiety, no fear, no nothing. It was wonderful to see. We didn't have to mention it, but we were just glowing inside knowing that we'd made this person that's now not worried about going to do this thing. And the whole way there, talking away, which is unusual because on the way to school, it's a different feeling where she's going. She doesn't want to go. Picking her up from school, doesn't want to talk, doesn't want to come back. Or wants to come back, doesn't want to talk to anyone. And then the whole time at this nursery, she had the greatest time. And she was really praised by her peers and all the rest of it. And I kind of sat with her on the last day taking her in. And I said, how free does your brain feel? And she went, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, the amount that you carry around of giving a fuck about what someone else thinks. And you have been the lightest I've ever seen you, physically and mentally, over the past week, because you're now being treated like an adult and you are acting like an adult, and your responsibility and your brain energy is focused in such a different place that you're not having to worry about what some prick thinks about your socks, or what someone thinks that you might smell, or your shirt's not from the right place, or whatever it is. But that just evolving of human in front of me in the past few weeks has been so beautiful because she's not hanging on to what someone, because she doesn't know them well enough yet. They might become a peer group and she starts hating Heinz beans. I don't fucking know. But for the time being, because she was separated enough from it to be herself, the herself that I saw was fucking beautiful, as opposed to the one that's been kind of formed by other people and anxieties and hang-ups, which is where the superstitions come in, because she won't start doing something, or she won't then have this or do that. Whereas it's nice to see that there is a different side. There is a way of training yourself out of it, and sometimes that could be subconscious. That could be completely not even your intention. Does that make sense?
I think so. Although your parenting skills slightly undermined about talking about giving a fuck and not, but you know,
no, but that to me,
everyone's got their own approach.
I think being straight has always worked, and you know, you've never heard my kids swear, but it's how I am.
You hear what they say about when you're not around.
Well, that's it. No one saw what I said when mine weren't there, and it just, that's the thing we've said to him in the past. Don't fucking worry about it. You. Be you. Be polite. Be pleasant. And I think this is where we miss a big trick with superstition. We don't we don't empower superstition where it could actually matter, where we could go, if you're actually homophobic, your ears are going to fall off. You're gonna have to wink at a bus stop as you walk past it, because then that means you're not homophobic. Where it would actually have a big difference, we do it because we've seen a fucking magpie or you've walked under a ladder, and I think we're not weaponizing the right thing.
You said the magpie was, teaming up with your daughter. What about the ladder?
Oh, stupid. Absolutely stupid.
So walk under ladders.
I have in the past, and I do, and it's just, it depends.
I mean, it's one of those things, I think, that actually walking under ladders does have a certain danger.
Someone
might drop something on you.
Yeah.
But the supposed excuse for it is breaking the Trinity.
I'm just thinking of another perspective, and maybe like a really trained athlete and somebody that wears his lucky socks on the football pitch, or somebody who's lucky pants in MMA and UFC. Do you think that could give a psychological edge in the match, that when he's thinking, I know I'm in the rough here, I'm really struggling, but we're going to be fine because I've got my lucky socks on?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, but again, it's a kind of conditioning response that it's a placebo effect. If you like. If you believe it's true, it's true.
But couldn't that just give you that moment? Because if you condition that away and you haven't got that...
Yeah, but I think the difficulty with it is that you're assigning the power to something that doesn't have the power and taking it away from yourself. So you lose your lucky socks, then you're screwed.
Yeah.
And you're dependent on something you don't have control over. Whereas you see that the way that you play, the way you behave, is down to your own choices, then there's more of a sense of agency in that.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we can understand what we believe and why we believe it, and whether or not those beliefs are valid in the real world, the more authentic a life we can lead, and the more we're not being driven by irrational anxieties.
Yeah, fears.
You know, I'm at a table with 12 other people. This is going to be a disaster. You might miss enjoying a really good dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, the guy got crucified the next day, but there's always a downside.
Does it correlate? Does it link to OCD? Kind of the superstitions.
Well, again, people can get. Again, it's whether you've got an obsessive kind of personality.
Yeah. I do have a friend that every conversation, it will always make it work as well. It'll go, well, there's 6 people in the room, so it means this.
Yeah.
But actually, like, somebody's just come in, but it's like, yeah, but it wasn't in at this time and this time, so it works. And
people can get ritualized behaviour. I remember a client that it used to take them forever to get out, because they'd have to go back 3 times to check the cooker was off.
Yeah.
And then they'd get to the car and then go back and check the door was locked.
Yeah, a friend of mine used to have to do a light switch 6 or 7 times. And it was always either an even number or an odd number, depending on what day or whatever it was. And I think the problem is, the more you allow this to take over, when you said you give it the power, and you're essentially giving something that can't use that. It's like a daddy long legs without having the teeth to put the venom through. You're giving them the power for no reason. And that's the scary thing, because I think it's really difficult for me sometimes that I don't understand the anxieties of certain elements. Like, we went to a wedding the other day, my cousin's wedding, and we went to my friend's 40th. And I saw a meme of it, like on TikTok, where this woman was saying, my husband's just been invited to a party, and he said yes. He didn't think about what he's going to wear. He didn't think about how he's going to get there. He didn't think about who's going to see him when he walks in. He didn't think about the first person he's going to talk to. He didn't think about how many people he knows, how he doesn't know, what they think of him, what they've looked at on his Facebook. And I was thinking, who the fuck thinks of all this? But genuinely, my wife does. And it's one of those things that it's so hard for me to understand that goes through someone's head, because it doesn't go through mine. So it's a massive fault as much as it's a superpower in certain ways, because I want to know that I want to be considerate, should I say, of those elements when I'm accepting to go, yeah, we'll go around to David's. How's it going to affect her? Because it twists her brain. Libby was, she went out to a kid's birthday party, and they went to Alton Towers. I dropped her off at 9:00. Everything was fine. Stacey's been watching her all day on this app, knowing where she is, what she's up to, all the rest of it. And then next minute, we were cooking dinner. And it was going to take about an hour. So I said, I'll stick it in and be fine. If she gets back by the time it's not done, I'll just leave it. I'll go and grab her. I'll finish it when I get back. And the whole time it was twisting her head. Well, I don't know if we're going to make it. It's going to be this, going to be that. And ruined 45 minutes of her life. To which then we received a text off Libby when we were on the last mouthfuls of our dinner saying, don't worry, such and such's dad is going to drop us off. So then she was like, and so I went, so all that absolute nonsense bullshit that you have just fucking rained out, it has got no effect. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And because I am more reactive to being proactive, which is she is, on this occasion, I was right. But I couldn't help but sort of have you worry too much. And I think that is built into all the anxiety and the superstition, all the other shit is giving something else the power.
Yeah, but saying to someone you worry too much, it never reduces.
It's like saying calm down. It's like saying calm down.
Yeah. I mean,
one magpie outside.
Fucking calm down.
I'm not looking at it. If I don't see it, don't care.
Little magpie outside, just one. Yeah, David gives the middle finger.
If he flies in now,
straight through his eye backed out. Yeah.
Straight through his glasses. But you've got to think about what happened in medieval times or whatever it was when a magpie was such a prick that he would be walking around on his own like this until his mate got there and went, calm down, Steve. And he's like, what? They're going to hate you. Do you know that the origin stories of most of these are fascinating?
Yeah.
But it is in
some really
boring world.
Prick in the past says, hey, magpies. And so they pass it on to their mate, and suddenly a whole village believes in it.
Yeah, but that is always pub talk. Flat Earth, pub talk, aliens. All of it is pub talk, but you've got someone that can really, really explain it well. Like Scientology, fuck me running. It's fascinating. The whole Louis Theroux thing that he did.
What you mean, aliens millions of years ago who died in a volcano?
But what I love about it is that he is a failed science fiction writer. That he's a bit down on his luck, and he went. And it's an Only Fools and Horses episode. Yeah. It really is, because it's like Del Boy's got too many of these science fiction books.
He wrote the most science fiction
of course he did.
Anybody ever.
And then he turned it into a cod shit fucking insane thing, which...
All the Mormons.
Yeah.
A guy was led by angels to find, New Testaments carved in gold in the desert, and he found them and transcribed them. They taught him how to transcribe them, and then he lost them.
Yeah.
But people are going... That sounds plausible.
Rewrote them, didn't he? Yeah.
But it's how it affects everyday life. You know, when you go into court and you go, put your hand on the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it could be a fucking Mr. Man book. It doesn't make a difference. But they hold so much to that. What
I'm an advocate for, I guess, in the end, this is a vehicle for my personal crusade of let's try and believe in science. Science isn't the truth, but it's trying to find the truth. And I think this is an important part, because there's so much... The world I grew up in, with Star Trek and stuff like that, I thought we were moving towards a more rational future. The opposite appears to have been the case.
Completely.
And there's more and more crazy ideas take hold. The idea that we shouldn't criticise other people for their beliefs, that is not a good thing, but that's been translated into we should never criticise beliefs. Not the people.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that everyone could have an opinion is true, but that all opinions are equally valid is demonstrably not true.
What would you say to someone then that said, well, it doesn't hurt anyone if I don't want to walk under a ladder? It doesn't hurt anyone.
Exactly, and I'm not at all concerned about that, but it's from an individual point of view, I think the recognition that you're living in a universe that really doesn't give a stuff about you. It's not even indifferent, because it's not animate.
Yeah.
It just exists and you exist within it.
You don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
No, I don't know it for certain. I say I wouldn't describe myself as an atheist, describe myself as an agnostic, because I don't want to define myself by what I don't believe.
Well, I'm just convinced that if there is anything there, apparently he forgives everything. So by the time I get there, I can work it out when I see it.
I just meant the universe being conscious of itself.
No, that's not possible.
Okay.
That's a different substance that we need.
That's
just hippie bullshit.
That was lovely.
That's hippie bullshit. I believed, 50 years ago.
Then YouTube came out.
But it's this whole idea about the choices that we have and the agents that we have in the world, and having anxieties about the things that we've not done and the things that we can't control, I think is ultimately not helpful. So whilst it kind of feels harmless in some ways, superstition, I think it feeds that idea of irrational thought, and I'm a real advocate of trying to move in a more rational direction, because I think the universe is more enjoyable when you can engage with it rationally. What science has shown, to see the discoveries that are being made by the James Webb Space Telescope.
Yeah.
When that was launched on Christmas Day, was it a couple of years ago? I was really anxious in case the launch went wrong, because there'd be no time in my lifetime for it to be replicated. And every time science has built a new telescope, like Hubble, we've discovered new things.
Yeah.
And the advance of knowledge, for me, is the most exciting thing of all. Rather than fixing the knowledge somewhere in the medieval past, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah. I think, for me, when I see it affecting someone in a negative way, like one of my kids or any family or friends, that's because it's an uncomfortable conversation sometimes to have, or it causes arguments, or it causes upset. And I think sometimes it's that important that you have that conversation, that you face that uncomfortable element. Because at times with the girls when I'll try and say something like, yeah, well, you don't know how it feels, I'm like, oh my God, you're going to get to 40 and you're going to have this light bulb moment and go, he was right. Actually, I didn't need to give a fuck. And it's a big thing. I've had colleagues when I work with them that they've come to me afterwards and gone, I never realised how you did it. And then all of a sudden I did it, and now it's changed my life. And I think I'm not a superhero, I'm not anything special, but it doesn't take a lot, and it doesn't have to be in a rude way, but it just doesn't mean that you have to live your life being powered by other people because you've given them all this power. Just embrace it and be yourself, and like you just be happy or be settled. And it's difficult, but I think once you start tasting it, like Moo going to work experience, she's been a bit different since she's broken up. Do you know what I mean? So she's had a bit more time, and she's had a little bit more energy to spend with us, as opposed to before she was pushed into this, you're a school pupil and you're this and you're that, whereas now she's a little bit freer, and it's lovely. But to see people really suffering by living to other boundaries and being restricted because of, I don't know, fucking touching wood or ladders or fucking magpies or whatever it is, it's exhausting. That you think,
or praying, or
anything
in the church, whatever it is. We've not really engaged with that aspect of it, but there is that thing about the rational life. Having tried both, there are great comforts to religion.
Yeah,
but ultimately, I think reality is more comforting in a way.
Yeah, you're making your peace with it before it needs to be.
Yeah. So I think a relatively short one today. I think it might have been useful, touch wood. No, only joking. I don't really buy into that bullshit, but you just try and think about things. What do you believe, and why do you believe it? And if there's no real basis for the mechanism, then maybe abandon that and try something more rational. Thanks, goodbye.